Members, it's time and we have a quorum. This is the start of the new legislative session. I wish you great success in your work, and then you're free to express your views. And if I may inform members, starting from this meeting, we'll be providing Putonghua simultaneous interpretation service. You could select channel 3 to tune into Putonghua as I service on the control panel. Item 1 on the agenda, confirmation of the minutes of the 33rd meeting held on the 12th of July 2013. We've forwarded the minutes to members, but we have not received any proposals for amendments. So can we confirm the minutes, please? Questions? Yes, we practice lingualism and biliteracy. Matters arising, my meeting with the Chief Secretary of Administration, there is nothing to report. Business arising from previous council meetings. Legal advisor, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are 2 reports on 2 bills that have been tabled. And LegCo, I'd like to give you a report on those. First one, Child Abduction Legislation Miscellaneous Amendments Bill 2013, LC paper number LS 76/12-13. The bill is to amend the Child Abduction and Custody Ordinance (CACO) and other enactments to provide for combating child abduction and for better implementing the convention that is relevant. The legislative amendments in the bill are based on the recommendations of the Law Reform Commission. The main amendments are to empower the Court of First Instance (CFI) to make a prohibition order, location order, or recovery order. The amendments also to empower immigration officers or police officers to detain children who are subjects of a particular order. This is to ensure the safety until the children could be returned to the relevant parties or could be followed up on by the Director of Social Welfare. The panel on welfare services was consulted on the 8th of February 2010. Members expressed various concerns on the legislative amendments. We're still conducting a technical study on the bill itself, but we believe members may wish to set up a Bills Committee. Bills Committee, please, members. You wish to set up one? Okay, Ms. Sit-Ho has proposed a Bills Committee. Who would like to join, please? Okay, and anyway, the Secretary will circulate an invitation. Next is Toys and Children's Products Safety Amendment Bill 2013, LC paper number LS 77/12-13. The bill proposes to broaden the scope of application of the Toys and Children's Products Safety Ordinance to cover, in addition to toys and certain specified children's products, any other product or material that is intended to facilitate feeding of a child under 4 years of age and that contains any plasticized material up to a maximum limit. Now, it is a rather technical bill, and we're still following up with the administration on certain issues. In the report, there is also attached some of our correspondences. On terms or expressions, the administration believes there is need to propose some committee stage amendments. And so we leave it to members if you wish to set up a Bills Committee. Members, do you wish to set up a Bills Committee? Mr. Sin Chung Kai has proposed a Bills Committee. Who would like to join, please? Thank you. In that case, the clerk will circulate a paper to members too. Next, Legal Service Division report on subsidiary legislation gazetted between the 12th of July and the 27th of September 2013. Legal advisor, please. Yes, Mr. Chairman, it is consolidated report, LC paper number LS 78/13-14. The paper actually covers 4 reports, because during the recess, we already submitted reports to members as soon as possible on subsidiary legislation gazetted. And so this is a consolidated report. It covers 14 items of subsidiary legislation. 3 have to be tabled, and for 9 there is no need to table them. There are 5 items that need to be tabled actually. The first one is the Waterworks Amendment Regulation 2013. It's about proposed adjustments to fees in line with the principle of full cost recovery. The other is Destination of Libraries Amendment Number 4 Order 2013. This is about designating a particular premises in Sai Kung as library. The third one is Fugitive Order Offenders Finland Order Commencement Notice. This is a commencement notice on Fugitive Offenders Finland Order signed in 2005. It's 7 years since now that is coming into commencement. Well, we have checked with the administration, and we're told that the Finnish government has taken this long to complete the legislative procedures. Upon notice from the Finnish government, the Hong Kong SL government is already immediately proposing the commencement notice. And there are other items, pilotage, and so on. We have reported to members there's nothing to add. And for items to be tabled in Leshko, there are 3 groups. The first group is one is the Thailand Tunnel and Yuen Long Approach Road Ordinance Amendment of Schedule 1, and then the Western Harbour Crossing Ordinance Amendment of Schedule Notice, and also the Volunteer and Naval Volunteer and Pensions Ordinance Amendment Schedules Order 2013. There are 3 others, and there are also others, and these have been forwarded to the reference subcommittee in relation to the United Nations Security Council sanctions, but of course members may decide formally today to refer the 6 items on UN sanctions or regulations to the relevant subcommittee. Yes, members, if you have no objection, we refer the 6 orders to the subcommittee chaired by Ms. Sit Ho. For 3 items that do not require amendment, the Thailand Tunnel 1, the Western Harbour Crossing 1, and the Volunteer and Naval Volunteer Pensions 1. There is no need, and then there are 5 other items of subsidiary legislation as well. Do we need to set up subcommittee? Let me go through them one by one. Waterworks, Destination of Libraries, 2013. Surrender Fugitives, Finland Order, Commencement Notice. Pilotage Amendment Regulation, 2013. Well, I think we only passed the legislation last year, so I think we should look at this legislation. You mean the pilotage one? Yes. So Mr. Sin Chung Kai has proposed to set up a subcommittee. Who would like to join, please? Okay, the Secretariat will circulate the relevant notice to members. So Pilotage Amendment Ordinance 2013 Commencement Notice, I think we could deal with that in one go as well. Okay. Next item, business for the Council meeting of the 9th of October 2013. Questions 22. Questions. All the slots have been taken up. Bills first reading and moving of second reading. There is one. Peak Tramway Amendment Bill 2013. We will consider the bill at our meeting on the 11th of October. Government motion, there is none. Members' motions. Proposed resolution under Section 34(4) of the Interpretation and General Clauses Ordinance, Cap 1, in relation to the Solicitors General Costs Amendment Rules 2013 to be moved by Ms. Dennis Kwok. And also, for the arbitration, appointment of arbitrators and mediators, and decision on number of arbitrators rules, Mr. Dennis Kwok will move a similar motion. Next, a motion under the Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance to be moved by Dr. Kwok Kar Ki. And then there will be two members' motions. Motion on formulating long-term infrastructure planning to promote sustainable development to be moved by Dr. Low Wai Kwok, and motion on formulating a target ratio of housing expenses and a standard for the average living space per person to be moved by Mr. Tong Li Tse. The deadline for giving notice of amendments to motion has expired on the 2nd of October. Next, business for the Council meeting of the 16th of October 2013. Questions. Again, 22 slots have all been taken up. Bills first reading, moving to second reading, we have not received any notice yet. Government motion, proposed resolution under Section 29 of the Pharmacy and Poisons Ordinance Cap 138 to be moved by the Secretary for Food and Health. Legal advisor, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Secretary for Food and Health has given notice to move a motion at the Legislative Council meeting of the 16th of October to seek the Council's approval of the Pharmacy and Poisons Amendment Number 5, Regulation 2013, and Poison List Amendment Number 5, Regulation to add one substance so that it could be strengthened, so regulation and control that's phthalates. And we have nothing to add in addition to our report number LS 1/13 to 14. Now the regulations will come into effect on the 18th of October, on the date of gazetted. So, members, you wish to set up a subcommittee? No, then the motion will be moved. Next, members' motion on vote of no confidence in the Chief Executive to be moved by Dr. Kwok Kaki, and another member's motion is on optimizing public finances and enhancing the impetus for innovation in Hong Kong's economy to be moved by Mr. Kenneth Leung. The deadline for giving notice of amendments to the motions is Tuesday, the 8th of October. There are 5, and there is also a list containing 5 items of subsidiary legislation, the period for amendment of which will expire on the 16th of October. It's been tabled at the meeting. If members wish to indicate their intention to speak, they should inform the Secretariat before 5 p.m. on Tuesday, the 8th of October. The Chief Executive's question and answer session on the 17th of October 2013. Now, the Chief Executive, this session will be held from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. There will be no scope for questions this time. No particular area. That means it's a free-for-all. I thought you said there won't be a questions session. Next, advance information on business for the Council meeting on the 23rd of October 2013. Bills first reading and moving of second reading. Air Pollution Control Amendment Number 2, Bill 2013. We will consider the bill at our meeting on the 25th of October. Position on bills committees and subcommittees. As at 3rd of October, there are 7 bills committees, 3 of which will need to work beyond 3 months since their commencement. There are 7 subcommittees under the House Committee, and 2 subcommittees on. There are also 7 subcommittees on policy issues under panels in action. There are 4 subcommittees on the waiting list. Next item, determination of a date for the election of members of the Legislative Council Commission. Please note, members, that at the meeting on the 18th of October, we will hold the election of members of the Legislative Council Commission. If members agree, then we will hold the election on the 18th of October. Any objection, please? No? Then we will hold the election on the 18th of October. Next item, proposal of Dr. Kwok Kaki to discuss the setting up of a select committee to inquire into issues relating to the possible conflict of interest arising from the Secretary for Development, Mr. Paul Chen's alleged ownership of agricultural land in the areas covered by the Northeast New Territories New Development Areas project, and the authorization of the Select Committee to exercise the powers under Section 9(1) of the Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance. As members are aware, Dr. Kwok Ka-ki will be moving a motion next Wednesday. He's been given a slot, so if there is approval at the House Committee today, then on behalf of the House Committee, I will be moving the motion. It won't be Dr. Kwok Ka-ki doing so. Perhaps I will give Dr. Kwok Ka-ki 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Now, as members may be aware, since July, the media has been exposing the three pieces of agricultural lands owned by the Secretary for Development, Mr. Paul Chan, who is also in charge of the NENT development project. And the three pieces spans 18,000 square feet. And this matter has gone on. We have given the Secretary opportunities to explain at the panel matters arising from his ownership of agricultural land and the control over the land. However, as the President of the Council also agreed, Mr. Chan has been giving answers in drips and drabs. First, he said that he didn't recall, and then he changed his version by saying that the land was actually owned by his wife, so on and so forth. And it is a very important matter involving public money. If he is hiding his possible conflict of interest in this matter, then we should not sit on our hands and do nothing. So I urge members to agree with my proposal, and then on the 9th of October in the coming council meeting, I'll be moving a motion to set up a select committee. Now, about the holding of shares, we all know that ultimately the shares were held by 3 overseas companies. Those are, according to media reports, BVI companies. And apart from invoking the Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance to summon the relevant individual to testify under oath, I really cannot think of any other means to investigate into the matter, because Mr. Paul Chan just a couple of days ago said that he had yet to reveal all. And as the Secretary for Development, it is impossible for him to continue to hide the truth, or to conceal the truth. And he has fallen far short of public expectations. We understand that the setting of a price for land resumption or land acquisition and the demarcation of lots of land, all these are under the Secretary for Development's purview. So with members' support, I think it's more appropriate for Chairman of the House Committee to move this motion on my behalf. Who else would like to speak? Ms. Emily Lau, 2 minutes. The Democratic Party supports Dr. Kwok Ka-ki's proposal. We also appeal to members of the House Committee to support us. And Chairman, if there is a majority vote today, maybe we don't need a debate, because somebody might actually step down. I think members in this council, as well as members of the public, all feel that Mr. Paul Chan is no longer fit for the post of Secretary for Development. Now, Chairman, even members of your party aside and shook their heads, and even your fellow members wrote articles urging him to step down. So I hope this afternoon at this meeting we can disseminate the a very strong message telling Mr. Paul Chan that he's no longer fit for his position. And if he remains as secretary, it will do no good to the administration. I think it's just a waste of time, even if there are enough votes to set up a select committee to look into this matter. I think the Legislative Council's time should be used for better purposes instead of investigating his affairs. Well, let's not talk about the select committee. Let's talk about the panel on development. Even the panel has spent most of, or at least half of its time discussing his affairs. So we support the motion. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, Chairman. I think we're just repeating the same story over and over again. He's unable to explain about the 3 plots of land. I absolutely support an investigation. Mr. Paul Chan said in front of the cameras that he believes that LegCo members are sensible. Well, even if investigations conducted under the LegCo PNP, we are still being sensible. The question is whether pro-establishment members are sensible or not today. Mr. James Tan, well, maybe you should be excused. I am pessimistic about this matter because for Mr. Timothy Tong, we all supported the investigation. But I say that Mr. Paul Chan has committed even greater wrongs because he is still in the position as Secretary for Development, and he has kept lying. And the only way to salvage Chief Executive C.Y. Leung's reputation or popularity is to investigate this affair. Now, he didn't call me. I didn't answer his call. And I think definitely the Pan Democrats won't get sufficient votes. Now, it will be hinged upon those in the middle or the center, and see whether they will support us. Maybe the FTU should not support should not support him. Mr. KK Fong. Now, members are asking for an investigation into Mr. Paul Chan's affair because he's in a position of great importance, and land is involved, and land means money. Now, how the plots are demarcated means a great deal because interests are involved. So the person holding this position must be whiter than white, and he is involved in a lot of gray areas and ambiguities, and there are uncertainties concerning the registration of his companies, and all these show that he is not or he cannot be whiter than white. And the purpose of setting up a select committee is to see if he is indeed whiter than white, because otherwise he will have to step down. Does any other member wish to speak? If not, this will be put to a vote. Mr. James Tan. Chairman. Now, many members have been on leave until a couple of days ago. I thought the matter would only be discussed in the coming Wednesday. I didn't realize that this matter would be discussed today at the House Committee's meeting. And therefore, we called for a couple of meetings to discuss this matter within the party. I think the most important thing is about the NENT development. We do not want anything that would obstruct the development. And Mr. Paul Chan is now the Secretary for Development, and I think even himself has not imagined himself being the Secretary for Development. And about this possible conflict of interest arising from his ownership of agricultural land, the land was purchased over a decade ago, and in relation to the price for the compensation amount, I don't think it's a decision made by the Secretary alone. It must be done by some professional evaluation. So I think investigation would cost the Council a lot of time and energy, and the investigation will be something similar to the questions asked at the panel meetings. Of course, members supporting the proposal may say that the investigation would be expanded to cover the scope of his wife, etc. Well, Chairman, the Liberal Party is against this proposal. Mr. Shan Kin-po. Chairman, I am very disappointed today because I think at the first meeting, I thought we should be discussing about the free trade zone in Shanghai and other livelihood issues. But now the first item that we're discussing is again on Mr. Paul Chan. We have a lot of infighting in Hong Kong, and these incidents are repeating. The discussions are repeating. And there are no fresh allegations, and there are no new developments in the matters concerning Mr. Paul Chan, so I'm against the proposal. Mr. Yip Kwok Him. Well, I think it's just wishful thinking that they will get a majority support. At this stage, we think that there is no need to invoke the electrical PNP. And just now, some members made some concrete suggestions. They said that Mr. Paul Chan had conflicts of interest and his integrity is flawed. And then there is the proposal of setting up a select committee. As Mr. James Tan said just now, these answers or explanations have been given time and again at the panel meetings. It's up to members whether they accept the explanations or not. And I don't wish to dwell into this matter because in the coming council meeting on Wednesday, there will be another discussion. So since it has gone ahead to the council meeting next Wednesday, let's not waste time here. The DAB is against the proposal.
Dr. Low Kwok. Mr. Chairman, before the summer recess, at the meeting of the panel on development, we considered the Northwest Anti-Planning project, and members of the public came to give their views. And a lot of the views given were to do with this particular subject under consideration by us now. I quite agree with Mr. James Tan. I mean, on the face of it, it seems that it's just clear-cut case. That is, over 10 years ago, someone bought a piece of land for recreational purpose. It was just a tiny plot, and it was proper then to do so. And of course, then Mr. Paul Chan made a declaration of his ownership. He did comply with the relevant rules. Unless there's any new development or new information calling for an investigation, at this point I am not in favor of invoking the Powers and Privileges Ordinance to set up a select committee. I don't see the need at this point. Any other members, please, speaking for the first time? Mr. Michael Tian. Mr. Chairman, in the last session, there were 4 days of public hearings in a row. Every day, Paul Chan was questioned and examined. There were various questions asked of me. I was there all along. I heard all the questions. And having heard all the questions and his reply, I could not myself come to the conclusion that he abused his office for personal gains. Because, as you know, for that plot of land, originally it was for private development, but it's to be rezoned for public development. And you know, of course, if a piece of land is to be resumed for public development, usually the computation will be less than in the case of private development. So I wouldn't say that's abuse of office for personal gains. And has he broken any rules? But he said he's declared his interest, and the chief executive has confirmed that too. So there's no breaking of any rules. Well, there's only one allegation left, that is whatever he said is not proven in black and white. Whenever we ask him for evidence in black and white, he would say that that's some sort of a trustee holding the shares, and the other party was reluctant to disclose his name. And I've checked with lawyers. The lawyer said, yes, if the trustee prefer not to be named, you cannot then name the trustee. So we're saying that whatever he said could not be proven by evidence in black and white. So do we have the right as legislative councillors to require him to go above the law as an official? And it's that reason why we should invoke the powers and privileges ordinance to examine him. But I don't think that's the original intention of the PNP ordinance. So that's why I'm against invoking the powers and privileges ordinance at this point to inquire to what Paul Chen has said and what I've seen so far. FTU. The FTU believes we should end the discussion of the Paul Chen's case. We shouldn't be hopping on the same theme. I agree with what the member said. He bought a piece of land over 20 years ago, and now that site is worth $3 million. So we're saying that he's been stockpiling on land. I think it's a real joke. Now, there's a saying in Chinese, if you want to accuse of someone, of course, you can always trump up certain charges. So I just doubt that. Is it because there is nothing else to accuse the government of? That's why you have dug up the same old issue again. I think at this point, we really shouldn't be wasting any more time and dwell on the issue further. So the FTU is against this proposal. First round, Chang Chi-chun, Mr. Chang Chi-chun. The People's Power, of course, will support Dr. Kwakakis in invoking the Powers and Privilege Ordinance to conduct the inquiry. Because I've actually moved a motion to ask Paul Chen to step down, and that motion was carried because there weren't enough members from the establishment camp present. But of course, that's not binding, so it serves no purpose. Now, of course, I don't realize we don't need the support of members for Dr. Kwakaki to move this motion, but we know many members actually support this motion. You could just pick up any newspaper reports. Is there any conflict of interest? Is it against law to collect rent when a company is frozen? And is it the case that Chen Mao-po and his wife have no conflict, have no interest in this case? Is it really true? Well, you might say that there's no new information made available, or maybe we can leave it to the reporters to dig up for the information before we decide what to do. You could say that, but I think even the press knows full well that we won't have enough votes to pass this proposal today. And if we don't have enough votes, then what do we do? Mr. Albert Chen said that we should then try to paralyze the affairs of the Development Bureau. And some members have expressed reservation because we should separate different issues. But anyway, so we should make available opportunity to talk about it. And secondly, we know we don't have enough votes to pass the motion. We have to see what we can do to exert more pressure on the government so that Paul Chen will step down eventually. Mr. Paul Chen Wei-chun. Mr. Chairman, some members have mentioned that there's no new evidence or new information. But we're saying that even the old debt has not been settled. If it weren't because of the summer recess, we wouldn't be picking up on this issue again only now. On old debt, yes, indeed, there are still lingering issues. Now, Mr. Paul Chen did give an explanation at panel meetings, but the more he explained, the more questions came about. Well, Yes, Mr. Michael Tan mentioned evidence in black and white. Maybe that's important because people are not happy with just his verbal reply. I think perhaps Paul Chan could take the bold step to take an affirmation or give evidence under affirmation about all the interests and so on. I think that's the middle of the road approach, is compromise approach. But if he just tries to explain things away at panel meetings, or he's being equivocal and he's just saying that because someone else doesn't want their interest to be disclosed, if he uses that as an explanation, I don't think it's enough. Now, next Wednesday, there will be a full debate on the issue. I hope Mr. Paul Chan will take advantage of the opportunity to do more. He shouldn't just be giving a verbal reply. He should either take an affirmation or give some sort of undertaking. He needs to give an account on how he's going to deal with this issue to the public. Now, the issue itself may not be a serious one, but the way he handled it, the way he tried to explain himself, he did make things worse. It was like the case of Franklin Lam. He put himself into trouble, actually. Now, today I would abstain from voting, but I would hope that Mr. Paul Chan understands that the public are not happy with his explanation. I hope he takes note of that. Otherwise, next time we might support such a motion. Mr. Albert Chan. From the subdivided flats to drink driving to stockpiling land, in any parliament with a democratic element, a person caught in such a position would have to step down. But this government, in this government, we have this secretary having committed all these street crimes, is still staying on shamelessly. Now, 16 years ago, Tong Chi-Hwa, who was really silly, he was chief executive. Then we had a greedy chief executive. Now we have a lying chief executive. And now the pro-establishment camp is doing exactly the same. They're being quite dumb and greedy and so on. Now it's the 60th anniversary of the Communist Party. Or rather, the Communist Party has been powerful for 64 years, and they've been ruling the country with lies for 64 years. Now, we're under the leadership of Leung Chun-ying, who's a Hong Kong communist. He's adopting the same approach in ruling Hong Kong. Now, CY Leung is supporting Paul Chan to rule Hong Kong with lies. Maybe the Finance Committee will also be dominated or managed by a Communist Party member. I was talking about this with the former chairman just now in the Lu. Of course, if we put things to vote, you always win. You have the upper hand. But I'm telling you, public grievances will only escalate. Don't think that the Hong Kong communists could rule Hong Kong and control everything. And of course, there are billions of dollars spent on maintaining stability, on cracking down on the people. The Hong Kong people will repay you. You could continue to dominate the floor, but you're not going to have a happy ending. Now, Mr. Albert Chan said he met a former chairman, the former president. Former president was Mr. Rita Fan. No, I meant the former Finance Committee chairman. I meant the former Finance Committee chairman. I was referring to the Finance Committee. Anything else? Time's up. Any other members, please, who wish to speak for the first time? No? Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, 1 minute, and I'll give 2 minutes to Dr. Kwok Ka-ki. And I'll put the item to a vote. Mr. Chairman, the pro-establishment camps are being self-contradictory. And Paul Chan didn't report. Of course, he didn't realize that land could become so valuable. But then he became the Secretary for Development, and he declared it to CY Leung. And then, together with his wife, he sold the site to his brother-in-law. So that's what we're talking about. I don't know what else you want to inquire into. Now, if you see something and you pocket it, that's it. Timothy Tong wouldn't know how he will end up in this position. And then he's also drawing allegations to himself. So, and then now people want to investigate into you what is wrong, and you can always explain what's wrong with that. The matter is as straightforward as that. Why would you want to stop him from coming to give his explanation? He said members do talk reasons. Of course, we talk reasons all the time. He said it himself too. He never said that if we invoke the PMP, then we won't talk reasons. No, he never said that. Okay, your time is up, Dr. Kwakaki. Mr. Chairman, as many have expected, we all know that this council is not fair. And there is the presence of functional constituencies. So before we even put things to a vote, we know what the outcome is like. But I'm really disappointed. I thought some pro-establishment camp members might say something in fairness. Now, if you want the Northeast NT project to proceed, there's no way you could keep Paul Chen in his post. It's obvious that he would become the reason for resistance with the NENT or other projects. And many in the community saying, how come he's still staying on? Now, on the mainland, there are many corrupt officials, true. But then if there is a principal official like Paul Chen in his position, he would have to step down. Xi Jinping wouldn't let him stay on. And you are trying to protect him now. I think that's outrageous. The only thing left for me to say is this. Now, Mr. Portier asked him to take an affirmation. That's exactly what the PMP ordinance asked him to do. Because if we set up a select committee under the PMP ordinance, he has to give evidence under oath. So he has to tell the truth. Now, in summer, when the development panel had its meetings, if the motion was binding, if Paul Chen had a little bit more shame, he would have stepped down by now. He shouldn't have to wait till we investigate him. So that's the kind of official we have. That's the attitude he adopts. He's been given plenty of opportunity to tell the truth, but every time he will only say a bit. Someone who is honest won't do that, and you're still trying to protect him. I think this is the day when we cannot really answer to the public as the Legislative Council. Okay, now we put the item to the vote. Those in favour of setting up select committee to inquire into Mr. Paul Chen's case, Ms. Emily Lau. Those in favour, hands up, please. I ask for a ballot. So the bell will ring for 5 minutes. Division bell will ring for 5 minutes.
Voting begins. Now, members have been on leave for 2 months, so please may I remind members to press the white button to show your presence before you vote. Now, please check your votes before I announce that the voting is closed. So if there are no questions, voting is closed. Results are displayed: 66 present, 26 for, 37 against, 2 abstentions. The motion is not carried. Next item: election of the chairman and deputy chairman of the House Committee for the 2013-14 session. I will proceed with the election of chairman and deputy chairman of the House Committee for the 2013-2014 session. Now, the commencement date for this term is the 9th of October. According to House Rules the 20 and Appendix 4 concerning the election procedures, would members please nominate a candidate for the post of chairman, and it must be done by at least one member verbally, and it must be seconded verbally by another member and accepted by the person being nominated. Mr. Yip Kwok Him, I nominate Mr. Andrew Leung, your good self. Yes, thank you. Who seconds that? Mr. Wong Kok Hin. So I accept this nomination. As I accept the nomination, and according to the election procedures, I will let Mr. Ronnie Tong to preside over the procedure. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? If not, then I declare Mr. Andrew Leung chairman of the House Committee for the session of 2013-14. Congratulations, Mr. Leung. Thank you, members, for putting your trust in me, and I will continue to serve members as always. Now we'll proceed to election of deputy chairman of the House Committee, and again there must be at least a nomination from one member, and also seconded by another member. Mr. Alan Leung. I nominate Mr. Ronnie Tong. Who seconds that? Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Mr. Ronnie Tong, do you accept the nomination? Yes. Any other nominations? If not, I declare Mr. Ronnie Tong as as deputy chairman of the House Committee for the 2013-14 session. Thank you, members, for your support. Any other business? Now, on the 18th of September, Ms. Emily Lau has proposed in her letter concerning a review on the members' acceptance of invitations for overseas visits. Ms. Lau, you have 2 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Well, the details have been set out in my letter. The Cathay Pacific made an invitation, and that was the cause of the row, and this has been done before, but now that there are views on this matter, I think we should discuss it and decide whether members should accept the invitations and the circumstances relevant to it. And I think that we should have a discussion, and I like to refer this matter to the House Committee. And members, Chairman, I note that you have written to the Chairman of the Committee on members' interests. Perhaps you think that it's more appropriate for the discussion to be held there, and it's also mentioned in my letter. So, Chairman, it's up to you whether the matter should be referred to Mr. Yip Kwok Him's committee, and that's the Committee on Members' Interests. However, there are only 7 members in that committee, whereas I think that the majority of members should take part in the discussion, and probably a public hearing is necessary. And the Secretariat may be preparing a background brief so that members know the reference to look up, and also the arrangements in other jurisdictions. I hope that this information can be prepared. So, Chairman, you can decide the venue of the discussion, or at which committee the matter should be discussed. I communicated with Mr. Yip Kwok Him, and Mr. Yip Kwok Him has said in public that his committee would take up the matter and have a follow-up discussion on it. So I think the most appropriate channel is for the matter to be referred to the CMI, the Committee on Members' Interest. Although there are only 7 members in that committee, they can give a report to us anytime. Mr. Yip Kwok Him, please. Yes, thank you, Chairman. Like you said, we communicated, and as Chairman of the Committee on Members' Interests, I have also received inquiries from other members, and that is why the item has been put on our agenda. So we will follow the relevant rules applicable to the Committee on Members' Interests to discuss this matter. And if necessary, we can report to the House Committee or to the Council. Mr. Ronnie Tong. Now, I don't have any objection if the matter is referred to the Committee on Members' Interests, but there are only 7 members. So I'd like to ask Ms. Emily Lau what is meant by overseas visits, because very often I do receive invitations to attend, say, seminars or give a speech overseas. So do these are these covered as well? I'd like to know how it is defined. So I think, subject to members' support, I think the matter should be referred to the Committee on Members' Interests for discussion first. Ms. Lau, Chairman, I agree with you, and I think the committee led by Mr. Yip would allow members to take part in the discussion and give their views. And like he said just now, some members have written to the committee to express their views. Of course, they can do that, but they can equally take part in the discussion. Now, perhaps the Secretary General can say something about it later. The question is about a declaration that we have to make 2 weeks after we accepted or went for the overseas visits. And I think in the future, perhaps we can discuss how the rules can be better written. And SG, can you tell us whether you have commenced gathering information to assist members on the discussion? Well, I believe that although there are only 7 members in the CMI, they represent different parties in this council, and I believe Mr. Yip, as chairman of the committee, will handle the matter in a fair and impartial manner. And if members are to be consulted, I believe that there are sufficient channels for him to do so. Mr. Yip, your response? Now, the Deputy Chair of the Committee on Members' Interests is Ms. Emily Lau. So it will be proceeded with according to the rules of procedure. I cannot give an undertaking at present how the membership could be expanded and how the discussion would take place, but we will act in accordance with the rules of procedure. SG? Thank you, Chairman. So just to supplement, to reply to Deputy Chair's question, according to ROP 83.5, it states the matters registrable, and one of which is about overseas visits made by the member of his or his spouse relating to or arising out of membership of the Council, where the cost of any such visit has not been wholly borne by the member or public funds. And registration will have to be made in such circumstances. Another piece of information is in relation to the details of the registrar, and this matter was discussed at the last term, but the relevant proposals had not been put to a vote during the last term. So we can follow up on these proposals, and we can also look for information regarding the arrangements in other jurisdictions. Okay, if there are no other views, the matter will be referred to the Committee on Members' Interest for their handling. Next item. Up-to-date position on the signification of membership of panels. Well, the information has been distributed to members. I'd like to remind members that the deadline for joining relevant panels is tomorrow at noon. So if you haven't submitted your name, then please do so as soon as possible. The deadline is noon tomorrow.